Hey everybody, it's Meredith Miller here with your Monday Sana Q&As, answering questions for you guys every Monday. The link is below if you would like to submit a question for me to read. Please keep in mind I'm like several weeks behind in the questions because there's a lot of questions adding up. I don't have time to do them all. If you have a really pressing issue or something much more personal, I get back to you within 48 hours. If you want to submit a personal email support on my website, that's only $57. If you would like to have a one-on-one Skype coaching session with me that is 90 minutes, it's only $147. You can sign up for that on my website. It's called a strategy session, and if you want to save money, you can book a 3 or 5 session package where you can save money per session. That's going to get you a lot of help to figure out what it is that you're struggling with. What are you trying to understand? I'm going to help you identify those things, figure out where you're blocked, identify some key things for you to start making the steps moving forward toward your healing and recovery. So I'm going to address this question right now. This person says, "Hey Meredith, I've tried several times to leave my narc husband and have gone back. This time I'm ready to leave for good, even though I am scared beyond description because I just can't live like this anymore. I feel completely empty and destroyed inside. Thankfully, we do not have children together. We have been married 2 years and lived together 6 years. We have been married 2 years and together 6 years. Before we married, he lived a double life with another woman and her kids from previous marriage for 4 years, and yet I still married him. He said all the right things to think I was the one. I moved out after 6 months of marriage, after many lies, affairs, etc., but I've gotten sucked back in a few times. I have had my own apartment since March of 2015, but I stay at his place a lot. He assumed I would not renew my lease, which I just did. How do I know whether I should tell him in person or write a letter? I'm not really even sure what to say to him at this point. He thinks he has changed and asks why I can't have faith in him as my husband. So it leaves me on what to say to leave for good. Thanks for any advice. Blessings." So first of all, you don't owe him anything. And that's the first thing that you want to get through your head, right? Because like we have these ideas, those of us who are recovering codependents, that it's like we have to fix things, we have to heal things, it's our fault, we have to do all the work in the relationship to make it work. Right, so you feel like there's this enormous amount of pressure and responsibility on you. I would start reframing that by telling yourself, you don't owe him anything. Like, even the fact that you were married for a period of time, you don't owe him anything. Understand this, being in your life is a privilege, and that privilege needs to be earned. And if people don't earn that privilege and they treat you poorly, they don't have that privilege to be in your life. They don't get to be in your life. So I would start to have an attitude like that. That's going to change things. You know, instead of you feeling like you have to measure up to other people, to be accepted by other people or wanted by other people, I would start reframing that by realizing that being part of your life is a privilege. Okay, and when someone is treating you like this person was treating you, they revoke that privilege. You revoke that privilege. They don't get to have that privilege. They don't belong in your life if you don't allow that. If your standard of self-respect and self-worth is where it could be, right? I'm not saying should be, right? But where it could be, if your standard of self-respect and self-worth were higher, this man would have no reason to be in your life, right? So you want to work on the self-value and the self-respect. That's going to come first and foremost by setting boundaries, because as you set boundaries and enforce those boundaries, the message that you're sending to yourself is that you value whatever it is you're protecting: your time, your energy, your love, your body, your space. Your boundaries are going to protect that, and then your self-respect comes when you uphold those boundaries. When someone tries to violate, push, impose, guilt trip you to change your boundaries, if you go back on that and you allow them to change your mind and to destroy your boundaries, your self-worth goes down, right? And these manipulative types have all sorts of covert, aggressive ways of trying to get you to change your boundaries. So you want to hold the boundaries. You're going to rebuild your sense of self-respect by maintaining those boundaries. The first boundary I would start with is no contact. Like, you are married to this guy, right? And it sounds like you're still married, right? Even though you're not living together. That's what I think I understand. So if that's the case, if you think you're done with him, I would go to an attorney. I would start the process of the divorce paperwork. I would at least go for the consultation to get advice on how to proceed. I would ask your attorney, what your attorney recommends in terms of how you're going to notify him that you're getting divorced. Are you just going to wait till someone serves him the papers? Or are you actually going to tell him that you want the divorce and you've contacted an attorney? I would ask your attorney for that legal advice before you go ahead and approach that, because you are married. And that's if you decided that you're done with him. And I hope that you are. It sounds like you saying, you're ready to leave for good, but you're scared because you can't live like this anymore. So I'm trying to understand what that fear is exactly. Like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of going back to him? If that's the case, I would contact that attorney right away so that you can start this path of no return, so that you can start to initiate the divorce process. If you're scared about his reaction, how he might react when you tell him that you're getting divorced, that's where I would be more cautious. That's why I would ask the attorney first what his advice is on notifying this person. If you were not married and you were just dating this person, I would approach this like a text message or an email at this point, saying like, I'm moving on. I'm focusing on different things in my life. I don't wish to have any more contact with you. I wish you all the best. And then I would not wait for a response. I would block everything. I would not respond. I would not read a response. I would not answer any unknown phone calls. Once you've blocked him, right, and his number and his emails are going to junk, I would not go to the junk thing and, read his response to that. If he sent one, I would not look for his response to see if he sent one. Nothing. I would just end it really clean like that. Because you were married to this person, maybe you want to have your divorce attorney make that contact or advise you on how to approach that. They could try to make it really difficult. The narcissist, sociopaths often make it very difficult to divorce, try to, take advantage of you in the process and everything. So I would immediately get legal advice on the matter. It's funny, you said he says that he changed, or he thinks he changed, right? But I'm pretty sure that that's not true. They often love to do this as a form of hoovering. They pretend like they've turned a corner and they're a different person now, and like maybe they're even showing you different things, like, whatever your points of contention were, they're pretending like that's the exact thing that they resolved, and they're not like that anymore, and they realize how much they've hurt you, and they want to be different, and they don't want to let you down, and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, they're still doing those same things, or they're using other covert manipulation tactics, because now you're on to those. So I would be very cautious in believing any of that. Chances are he actually believes it himself, because oftentimes they believe their own lies. If you tell yourself a lie enough, you start to believe it. That's probably where a lot of them are. Maybe some of them actually know that they're lying. It's hard to really tell. And I think that depends person to person. But I think for the most part, they feel at the very least justified in telling their lies. Some part of them believes that it's justified. I would not listen to that. I think it was Dr. George Simon that said in an interview I did with him, which, by the way, he wrote the book In Sheep's Clothing, which is about all of these covert aggressive manipulation tactics. I would read that. But in the interview, he said the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, right? This person, for how many ever years you knew him, was always doing these things. Like, predictably, he had these patterns, and now all of a sudden he thinks he's changed and he thinks he's different. Chances are that's not true at all. chances are that's not true at all. And if he's still doing these things in any way, shape, or form, that's why I would read that book, so that you can read what these covert aggressive manipulation tactics are. You can identify very clearly when he's using rationalization as a form of gaslighting you, when he's using blame shifting, when he's using guilt tripping, when he's using redirection. And just look at all these tactics and see how clear it is to you that those are the exact tactics that he's using. So I would not for a minute believe in that whole, I've seen the light and I've awakened and, turned a corner in my life and I'm not the same person. I really want to prove it to you. Like, every single time I've heard that, it ended up being a bunch of bullshit. Every time I've heard a client say that about someone, same thing, right? That's just the pattern. That's the pattern of hoovering. That's what they do. They will say anything to keep you there. So again, I would contact your divorce attorney, have him give you some advice about how to proceed with the divorce, how to proceed to notify your ex that you no longer want to have contact. Great job, by the way, renewing your lease and doing it quietly without asking for his opinion or having him, weigh in, because chances are he was hoping you weren't going to renew that lease so that he can get you back living with him. And then as soon as you were living with him and trapped and dependent again, then he could instantly start abusing you again. Like, that is predictably what happens. So great job doing that. Great job. And, the good news here is, like, that emptiness and that destroyed feeling that you feel inside, that can be healed. It can be. It takes time and it takes a lot of inner work, but it can be healed. If you haven't seen my Sana 12-week audio series, I highly recommend that. It is only $10 and it's 3 months for you to have this foundation of your self-healing process after narcissistic abuse. Like, week by week goes into a different layer of the self-healing process, a different focus, different things to work on, help you focus on your healing, on your recovery, on moving forward, instead of focusing on this relationship. Because now, as you start to move through the divorce process, like, lots of things are going to come up. It's going to be a trying time. It really is. It's not easy divorcing one of these types, but it's worth it. It's worth whatever you have to go through in the meanwhile. It seems like things get worse sometimes as you set new boundaries, and it often does, because when you set a new boundary with a toxic person, the first thing they do is try to impose, to try to violate, to try to get you to change your mind through guilt tripping and through shaming you about having that boundary, so that they can go ahead and keep abusing you and using you the way they always have been. So the boundaries are really important. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable in the short term. You have to be willing to deal with that and to stand up and to stand tall and to hold your boundaries in the short term, so that you can have long-term peace of mind, which is inevitably what your divorce will bring you, is the long-term freedom and peace of mind from this person. So I would really focus on your healing instead of focusing on him so much, and contact your attorney about how to approach it. I would not have an in-person communication with him about the divorce. I just wouldn't. I would probably put it in writing, but that's me. I wouldn't want to get involved in any kind of in-person thing. I would certainly not invite him to your house anymore, and I would not go to his place anymore. If you have to have any kind of in-person communication, I would do that in a public location, a restaurant, a cafe, something public. Don't allow him into your home anymore, and don't step on his turf anymore. Contact your attorney to get some legal advice and to get the ball moving forward, so that you can move forward with your life and be free from that. I'm sending you a big hug.